motor through it. I did apologies in the first half of the meeting. Charlie and Craig have also now left. Can I just check whether anybody's got any declarations that we don't already know about that want to bring into the room? Diane?
So just to minute it, I guess, is I've been appointed on a whole of Saudi Arabia Airways. I'm not planning to visit anytime soon. So,
yeah.
Sorry?
Obvious citizens.
Yes, well, you have stunned the group for silence.
Congratulations.
Good luck, congratulations, and good luck.
It's one way about to be.
Thank you. Any other declaration? No. All right. So that takes us straight on to the Chief Constable's update, Lucy. So thank you. You've given us a really clear written report, and we just set aside a few minutes for you to draw to the authority's attention. Anything particular that you wanted us not to miss in your report, or anything that's happened since you wrote it?
Okay, thank you very much. So probably the bits to draw out was certainly in the first part of the report, the conviction of Den Majek, where he received 29 years imprisonment at Coventry Crown Court for the murder of Rhiannon White. So I think that was a huge achievement. The team, very complex investigation, and they were commended by His Honour Judge, Mr. Justice Sewell. So we felt very pleased with the sentencing of that case, and also the work undertaken by everybody. More recently, obviously, the fire at Glasgow Central Station and the building to the side of it. So a fantastic joint emergency service response to that. And I went up there, and there was a lot of praise from the First Minister for the response by everybody concerned in that. I think probably I'll pause there in the interest of time. So I don't know whether there's any questions from any members, but happy to answer any. Probably the last bit is really important, just to note the final position in terms of the establishment reset, which was as a result of last year's budget. So I would just draw members' attention to that particular part of the report.
And there's some very helpful material in the wider pack, which just walks through that, so helps us all understand the sequencing and how you're managing that for the next financial year. Thank you. I mean, just before I open up for questions, to say that it was going to Glasgow the day after the fire was obviously completely coincidental, but it was a great opportunity to see partnership in action. So it was a very positive experience at a difficult time. Anybody got any questions on Lucy's helpful report? Paula, and then Alexia.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Lucy, for the report. I was struck by what you said in 5.9 about CCTV quality and accessibility, and the need to advocate for upgraded standardised systems with direct access. How can we help?
Yes.
Well, I mean, I think that obviously the cost of this is substantial. It's a railway related issue. So the department did provide 17 million from the last comprehensive spending review, but that is a small amount considering the scale of the issue across the network. So I suppose if there is likely to be another comprehensive spending review, I think the authorities' support to be able to work that through with the department to see what the impact would be the best way to leverage some support from authority members. I mean, this is just a huge investment that's required. I mean, we've been doing a lot of work. I mean, Ian's been doing an awful lot of work. We've showed the quality of the CCTV. We demonstrate the impact of the lack of access to CCTV in terms of its hindrance of some of the incidents, particularly some of the ones we've had recently. We've seen greater delays on the railway because of our inability to access CCTV. So I think the data's there. Ian, we've got significant data. It's just really, it's a funding investment that's required, and maybe GBR will provide some opportunity with that.
So Ian has an excellent pitch on this, and if I remember, I was listening very carefully. I mean, for TfL specifically, I think your data suggests that you could have detected 400. You could have actually 400 more, solved 400 more crimes than you did had the CCTV been of a higher standard. That's a sobering number.
Yeah, that's just for one operator. I mean, I've got to say some operators are excellent, and have got really good station CCTV and onboard CCTV, and then other operators haven't renewed from over the years or decades, and is a lot older CCTV. So yeah, we're picking that up with individual operators outside, but certainly, I've given a demonstration to the new members, and if any of the more established members want to see some of the footage, I can even show you after this.
Thank you. Alexia, oh, sorry.
No, I was just saying, or a briefing note.
Yeah.
Would be.
Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, I just had nothing or pretty much. So, reference to see a paragraph about work going on balancing swimming barrels. And I'm thinking it would be really helpful just to see some more of the tangible things that sit beneath this kind of road, maybe on the chest and thing offline.
Yeah, sure.
Related to that, because I'm quite keen. It all sounds good, but I'm not seeing what's happening on the ground to actually, see a reduction. About some challenges, there's a lot of communication and speaking up about things. What are we doing to basically feel safer for women on changes? And so there was that one. And then there was a question related to safer behaviour and the rise in staff assaults that we're seeing on the network. And I wonder whether I'm interested in the forces around more use of travel order bans or whatever the right terminology is, to work with operators around that, and whether there's more consequences that we need to work with the industry on to try and help challenge people that are not repeat offenders.
Yeah, so in relation to the first one, in terms of violence against women and girls, it's always a bit of a difficult one, because I'm not sure we are going to see a reduction. I think we're seeing a huge growth in confidence of female women as victims, women and girls, to report. So I think we need to have a keen eye on the solved rate. So we should be looking to make sure that we are detecting, solving more crime in this area, and then that in itself helps us to create a hostile environment for predatory sex offenders, which is to really in effect say, we will find you. And I think that does lead into some of the earlier points around the CCTV, the exploitation of predatory sex offenders of areas where they believe to be limited CCTV. It is a challenge. So I think in terms of what do you see, there is a lot of communication, because we don't really understand, I think, still today, the scale of the challenge that we're dealing with and the locations which are our priority, although there is some work that's taking place in relation to that. And we need to use all of the legal framework in order to ban them from using the network. But I still think policing is growing. It needs to regrow its confidence from women in policing. We're not there yet. We're not at the end of that journey. In relation to the rise in staff assaults, again, Ian's been doing a lot of work, and we've been doing a lot of work with RDG. In fact, actually, on violence against women and girls, we have actually got the first joint strategy with the industry in order to combat violence against women and girls, which we're in partnership with RDG, and that should launch itself this week. I think the rise in staff assaults is a real issue for us, which we care very deeply about, and certainly we are encouraging wider use of body-worn cameras. But Ian, you were with the Wisdom Summit recently, which was specifically looking at this area.
Yeah, and also in relation to how about ties with ancillary orders, which you spoke around. So obviously, as a police service, we've got a ability to apply for a criminal behaviour order, or in sexual offences for a sexual harm prevention order. 6% of the sexual assaults we record are against railway staff. And I noticed that there was one yesterday. So the two issue quite closely. But also part of that RDG group, which we're in at the moment, is looking to reinvigorate what's called the WIP process, the withdrawal of implied permission, which is where the railway can, essentially ban someone from the railway. So I think we need to do more of all of those things. But it really does also tie into the CCTV. So if we do have, I'm running around between both your Hawk and your staff assault points, but if we do have a report that, remember public, that somebody has been upskirted on an escalator, we need really good CCTV of that escalator to be able to go back and find it, particularly in crowded conditions. If we do get a report of a member of staff being assaulted, again, we do rely on CCTV and body-worn video to be able to prove that. I know that we need to provide you, or we promised to provide you with some good case studies of body-worn video, and we'll do that.
One more quick one, Brian.
Yeah, and just I think it's in your report, Lucy, just around that workplace violence and aggression summit, that was held than it was for the London area. But I think, you know, Stuart was fantastic at that, and you know, his commitment was so clear around what he was saying, made it very meaningful. And actually, there were some victims there, including a gentleman who ended up with a bleed on the brain following assault on her on the hill, and they were all the people on there, including people that sit under the Met jurisdiction buses. They were all very complimentary about the police response in terms of that. In fact, if anything, the dig was towards the industry could do a bit more.
Yeah.
So we should recognise that whilst there's more to do, I think there were some real positives that came out of there. So yeah, really good.
Great feedback, thank you. Lovely, thank you very much. There's always such a lot in your reports, but I think we'll stop there. Have we established the right balance between noise and heat now that we can close that window? I think yeah, that would be great. Thank you. Right. So just to kind of recap on the other things that we're going to do in the rest of this formal meeting. So we've just been joined by Nick. Welcome, Nick, who's going to walk us through the actual evaluation of the fund. And then we're going to come on to proposals, I think, which should be relatively quick on the 25-26 underspend, and then on the strategic plan and the policing plan. So essentially, there are three slightly different conversations. The first is absolutely core set of responsibilities for us on statute. So we just need to be really clear with each other what we're doing. So we've got a little bit of time to reflect on that. The underspend, I think money is just our core business. So let's make sure we all know what's happening. And then the strategic plan, the policing plan, is the start, I think, of the conversation, which picks up this morning's discussion around how we focus our resources and our attention on performance. So that's kind of, those are the three things. Let's start with the valuation. Sarah,
yeah,
over to you first, I think.
Thanks, Trisha. And actually, Nick has joined us from XPS. I'll introduce the paper. Nick's there to answer the really hard questions if anyone has any. But this is the actuarial valuation of the police officer fund, and just for context, that's got over 1.6 or just under 1.6 billion pounds worth of assets in it. It's the valuation as at 31st of December 2024. We're required to do them every 3 years, and the deadline to finalise the valuation is the 31st of March 2026. Again, for context, the last time we signed one off in for December 2021, there was a small surplus, and we are now seeing a larger surplus for 2024 year end. Key point of information is that we're proposing to retain the current contributions as they are, which is slightly above what the valuation says, so that we can build a buffer and keep contributions stable moving forward. Another key point to note is that People and Culture Committee have been fully briefed on this. Nick helpfully ran a session about 3 weeks ago, and you'll see all the papers and a record of that meeting in the background pack. When we finalised the 2021 valuation, there were some comments from the pension regulator, largely around our need to look at de-risking the investment strategy and also some of the funding assumptions. And so this valuation sees us addressing the comments that they had. And once we've concluded on that, there will be a letter sent back to the regulator to tell them what we've done. So the trustee has proposed to add more prudence around the discount rate and the CPI assumptions. So that addresses some of the de-risking needed around the funding assumptions. And then to confirm that XPS have helped us through, and Hugh and I have spent quite a lot of time talking around the potential to de-risk the investment strategy. So at the moment, there's an 80% allocation of the fund to growth assets and then 20% to defensive assets. Actually, we propose to retain them like they are to help minimise the long-term cost of the fund and again, mitigate risk down the line. Just a point of note that we do need at least 70% of assets or growth assets to ensure that the cost of the future accrual remains affordable and that we don't start eating into the surplus. We did take a look at the defensive assets, and we have proposed a small change there just to help mitigate the impact of changes in interest rates and inflation. And actually, there's a further proposal. We're asking the trustee to look at leveraging further and using that offset in terms of mitigating against inflation and interest rates. We've asked them to come back to us within a 6-month period and looking more at the investment strategy and what we can do there. I will stop there. Essentially, we are asking for the authority approval of what's proposed, and that will then allow Hugh to add his signature to a number of forms and payments that we need to do, and the trustee as well to make that submission.
Great, thank you. Super clear and helpful. And just in the spirit of Kenneth's challenge this morning around just making sure that we know where things have already been and what conversations have already been had. Nick or anybody else from people committees, or anything that you wanted to say about anything we picked up in the briefing that Sarah referred to? Is there anything else to add?
No, just to note it's the first year they've gone through the pension people committee, so I hope we haven't dropped the ball. But we certainly feel we've had comprehensive briefings from both Sarah and colleagues from the industry, so nothing but.
Thank you very much. Okay, well, let's open it up to questions then. I think, as Sarah said, easy questions for Sarah, hard questions for Nick. Andy, yeah.
As somebody was on pension working people, all I would say is that nothing that emerged from that, or indeed from what the pension regulator has said, particularly surprising.
Yeah.
I think that's, you know.
Yeah. So that was definitely, having been on people committee for the briefings, that was certainly the sense that this felt like a normal set of questions being raised and a convincing set of answers being provided. So that was very much that. Everybody's okay with that. Sarah, are you comfortable with that as well? Okay. Nick, you didn't have to work very hard there at all.
Excellent.
Thanks very much for coming. And we are approving the valuation. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay.
Bye.
Thank you, Nick. So next item, also yours, Sarah, which is the treatment of the 2025-26 underspend. I think when we were talking this morning, money completely core business for us as an authority. So this is one just to make sure everybody is sighted on and clear what's going on. Sarah.
Yeah, so I'll take the paper as read, and happy to take notes. I mean, ultimately, this paper is about charging and accounting treatment, which I know most people won't want to get into. It's not about the budgets that, again, in terms of the refresh of the MTFP, we'll be looking at as we move through into December again. So members might recall that we have already agreed to offset next year's charges, so 2027, by the forecast underspend at that time, which was about £2.5 million. That the forecast underspend for the current year has increased to around £4.8 million now, for reasons which FLP went through in quite a lot of detail last week, and we had a really good candid discussion around the reasons for the emerging underspend. So this paper is asking members at this point to agree to offset 27-28 charges by the further underspend that we're going to see in the current year. The reason the decision needs to be taken now is so that we can make the appropriate accounting adjustments for that to happen, such that it doesn't impact our budget, which is delegated to us by DFT. The reason we think it's the right thing to do is that it will help mitigate any pressures that we might see on some of the assumptions that we have made in our MTFP, such as the pay increase, which obviously we have to make an assumption on that, and actually in the past we've seen that we've not assumed enough. So again, I'll stop there, but it's asking for approval such that we can essentially put that money that we're going to owe back to the operators on the balance sheet in the current year.
Thank you very much. Very clear. Steph, did you want to add anything?
only to say that we support
It's
that
sorted,
from a
yeah.
force perspective. I think it's a really sensible, like, forward plan, looking ahead of some of the uncertainty we've got in the MTFP, and you know, nobody wants it kind of sitting in the bank unusable. So
No, absolutely not. Abdul?
Yeah, I'm happy to approve, and I think just one thing, I know that, you know, the force should spend what we've been given, but, and I don't think we should make too much out of it, because I think if you can, you know, save more money every year, £5 million, and from spend, you'll make me a very happy member.
probably not the public though, in terms of the services that they get.
As long as you're achieving the technical study to ensure
Yeah,
industry, you get my points. So,
Yeah.
Yes, I'm happy to say.
It's a funny old world year on year public funding, it really is, but that's a whole conversation. But thank you. Anything else on this one? No, I think it's really great and good to have clear alignment of intention across from the authority to the force. Everybody agrees it's a very sensible idea. Andy's nodding vigorously to my left here. So yeah, approved. Thank you very much, Sarah. Okay, we're doing very well. The next two are the strategic plan and the policing plan. Now, as I said this morning, both of these have been through a great deal of consultation and scrutiny already. So I'm not anticipating a lot of conversation around what it is that they say, because I'm not sure that this is a very helpful or productive thing to be doing at this stage in the process. But again, given the conversation this morning around performance being something that we want to be talking about as full authority, and these being this is the toolkit that we'll be using as a group of people, it's very sensible to put it on the agenda to make sure that we're all cited on what these documents say, and that we're starting to think as a group of people about how are we going to operationalize our discussions about performance and about delivery of the strategy. So I don't know, Ian or Lucy, this is your these are your strategy, your plan, whether you want to introduce them, whether you want Andy to say something as chair of strategy and planning.
Well, yeah, I mean, it's the authority's strategy.
Yeah.
So, but we obviously we are fully supportive of it, and actually, there's been great engagement in relation to shaping the strategy. So we are definitely happy with where we've landed, and I presume I know from the committees that members are happy with it. And I think the point is that this has shown where we intend to focus our time and energy over the next 3 years. And of course, the positive is that it's aligned to a 3-year investment strategy. So as you saw in my report, we've been doing road shows with all leaders across the force. So it's just under 800 leaders. And there's a very strong positive message that this, you know, for the first time, really, we've got a strategy aligned to the investment in the force. So it's a real positive. And I think it struck a really good blend between focusing on high harm offending, and also but making sure that BTP is fit and relevant for the future in terms of its innovation ambition, which we know that as an authority you're really supportive to make sure that we're not left behind the curve in relation to that. So I don't know, Steph, you did a lot of work on it, so maybe invite Steph or Ian if there's anything that they want to add.
I think just the reporting of the strategy will feel different. That's another thing that we've put a lot of effort into, just to get that clarity on what traction we're getting between quarters. What does good look like? A unified position on that. And underpinning it is a hugely detailed and very sophisticated blueprint that we're going to use to help with some of the communication, so that everybody understands, like, whatever rank or grade you are in BTP, what does good look like? What will our force feel like by when? And that will really be the line in the sand to kind of judge progress on.
Enjoy something, or you?
I think given your time, it's great.
Well, good. Can I just add, the blueprint has been very well received in the force, and there's an awful lot of effort that's gone into producing that. So I think it's really good for people to then see what it means for them. We have got, as Steph touched on, we have got a whole the communication strategy in terms of how this is rolled out across the force, really trying to keep it really simple.
No, I'd echo this point on strategic plans. I think this particular review of it to get the needs 3 years was very different on the before, and that's good credit. And just one other point, I mean, I've sat on the other side of the table on policing plans for many years, and then certainly the last, when we set up the 3-year review, the process was so much better, and a lot of people involved in that paid bundles as well. And therefore, I think, you know, the credibility of something that's been put into writing here is really very good. Much better than I've seen in the past when because it seems a little bit more dynamic. We have actually thought about the issues, and I think therefore the policing plan process has been really, really good.
That's really excellent here. And just before I open it up to members, I wouldn't mind just hearing from Kate. Kate, you and I have been talking a little bit about how we get the best value out of these materials that have been produced. So I'll bring you in next and then take questions from members after that.
Thank you. Yeah, I would just second what Lucy says around the blueprint, which I think really sets out clearly what the plan is for year 1, 2 and 3 of the MTFP period, really well aligned with the strategy and really clear on the deliverables within that, whether they're part of business as usual, they're part of the MTFP investment, or they're part of the innovation mechanism as well. So hopefully it's clear enough for members to kind of get their heads around. I know it looks like a lot, but it is quite clear. And then the other thing just to mention, I think, is the benefits of work force have done to align the objectives within the policing plan more closely with what the strategy now focuses on in terms of operational outcomes as well. So hopefully clear with others online to be able to see where they fit into that delivery as well.
Thank you very much. Okay, members, I think I had Ian start with.
Yeah, thanks, Chair. And I really welcome this. I think it's very clear. The bit that I found a bit difficult to work through, if not difficult, because I agree with the premise, is how we kind of clarified what it means. Is in strategic objective 2, it says at the end, incorporate community feedback to strengthen transparency and accountability. And the only reference I can find to that in the blueprint is on passenger feedback post-incident reviews, which I'm not sure how easy it is to get that or not. I wonder if there's something more we can do to incorporate what the public are telling us in a wider way into this as it goes forward over the 3 years. But I'm not quite sure where it fits within that blueprint, because the blueprint's very focused on what the force are doing.
Yeah. Great question. I don't know who wants to pick that up.
Well, I mean, I think there is an awful lot of feedback that we get via other bodies as well as our own sort of raw material. So I think probably at some point it might be quite helpful if we just give a bit of a overview to just reassure members in terms of feedback we get, you know, from RDG, who do, you know, they are data rich with the amount of feedback that they have. We do complement it where we think there's some gaps, because it's probably a little bit lighter on some of the police specific areas. But I take the point that it's probably not as explicit in the blueprint, but it's definitely there in terms of how we do it. So we can take that away and just have a look to.
Let's take it on, but if it
That would be helpful. I mean, I get that it is very important around disruption, but I think it might fit across some other areas as well.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
Just for reassurance, so we do survey a selection of victims of crime. But we also every month do a passenger survey as well. So there's definitely a lot there that sits behind us.
Thank you. So just kind of that thing on the other hand, reflecting on, not for the first time in this meeting, what Kenna was saying this morning around the relationship between strategy and performance, that I think the discussion for us as an authority to have is, you know, really kind of to bring these two things together is are we on track to deliver the commitments in the blueprint, which I would say is the best version, the best product of this type that I've seen from policing, including, you know, from my home office here. I think it's an excellent product. But our job is to kind of is to scrutinize the deliverables, and then to say in the nearer term what's happening on policing plan on the more operational front. And that's like those are two halves of the same conversation for us to have as an authority every time we meet. Any further thoughts on this? I mean, it's really good, as I said, really high quality product, very, very clear. Really, it'll be very transparent if the things in the blueprint aren't happening, because they're very kind of concrete deliverables. Thank you very much. That's all all approved. Right. That is it in terms of the issues we were going to put on the table. We've also got the documents which are grouped together under the consent agenda. When we were discussing this morning, we talked a little bit about the wellbeing, health and safety statement, and Alistair has circulated a summary of the discussion at People Committee and some comments which were raised by Diane and how those have been answered. So that's just for noting. But I definitely take away the conversation about the importance that the authority attaches to that, and will reflect on how to deal with that. Yes, Rachel.
Sorry, Tricia. I think I'm missing for I thought we were just talking about the strategic.
Oh, okay. Sorry.
Rather not
Yeah.
leasing.
Right.
Can I just raise the so there's 3 priorities as they're displayed in the little box hexagon. There's obviously been a conscious decision to move for like the offences. For me, that feels uncomfortable that we're losing for kind of something of its own. If you look purely just at that.
Page 21.
I'm sorry, yeah. I'm pointing to my screen, but I can't see it. And I think I get the rationale as to why it's gone under high hard. It's just whether we're comfortable in kind of losing it from what on the face of it looks like it's sort of been downgraded or scrapped, but I know that is not great mention.
So I'm comfortable with putting it under high harm offences, because I think, you know, we are being very explicit. You know, we have had to think about how we can structure the organisation to prioritise on what matters in high harm offences. You know, actually the lion's share of our high harm offences in BTPA are violence, intimidation against women and girls. And I think it's really difficult, because otherwise you start to pick out different categories. So, you know, offending against vulnerable people, young people, children, you know, what homicides, you know, we've got an equitable commitment to all of that. And I think with the launch of the strategy with industry, which is likely to be later on this week, I think that's a firming up of where we are. And actually, we are only a part of this. You know, we are not the solution on our own to reducing violence, intimidation against women and girls. And, you know, we heard this morning, you know, we could improve this with some investment in CCTV. We can make women safer. So I think high harm offences and putting violence against women and girls into that actually, in many respects, is a positive statement, really, because beforehand it's never necessarily featured within that category. Whereas I think we're saying it's very squarely within that category of harm offending.
Yeah.
And then obviously, hopefully, you can get some reassurance that, you know, the blueprint that sits underneath it is definitely got its focus.
Yeah.
And we know the MTFP settlement has got a specific line for the investment involved with the task force. So
I think we would have just watched the presentation made surely if you were going to kind of sit one side by side and not read anything else. For example, the male, then might. I just want
male person, or do you mean?
No, sorry, the lady male. Just presentation, whether.
I think, Rachel, I think that's a kind of good challenge. I think you should encourage stakeholders to kind of look at the content of the blueprint. And I mean, there are very, very clearly named actions in the blueprint. So I think we should be able to be quite reassuring on that. That might want to come into that.
Yeah, so I just wanted to support Lucy's response. That when I saw the change, I thought it did a neat job of actually improving the overall balance.
Yeah.
So violence against women and girls, I think, is still very high profile within the high harm category. But it also means visibility and coordination is up there. And in terms of passenger and staff confidence, which is the priority there, but for the majority of passengers who aren't subject to violent crime, actually that's the key issue. You know, generally feeling safe on the road. So I just thought overall it was a better balance when I saw that change. So I almost made the comment before you came in. I think it's a better balance overall without losing the prominence given to violence against women and girls.
You know, if there are ways in which we can help make that really clear for your stakeholders, then let us know what those are. But you wanted to say,
It's exactly that. We just need to
help. Yeah.
know what the narrative is and have that clear, because I expect we'll get a lot of correspondence and lobbying about how it's been deprioritised. You know, we get a lot of correspondence about things that are not correct.
Yeah.
We dig into it.
So if we just get ahead of that and agree, we can definitely collaborate on that.
Mike's pretty much said all I wanted to say.
Yeah.
I can remember showing my age when we started talking about prosecuting domestic violence, and that was the late 25 years ago. And it was always seen as something different.
Yeah.
And therefore the risk is seen as something less important. And I think one who's going spot on.
Yeah.
And I think saying this is a high harm crime, he absolutely nails it in a way that hasn't been nailed before. So I understand why the point's been raised, but I just want to advise to what Lucy and her team have done.
So Rich, I hope that is helpful. But I think let's pick up the, what can we do to support?
I'm just quite struck by what Lucy said earlier about the solve rate, and that was the thing that was really going to show that we've been effective here. And just generally, I wonder what are the kind of big indicators, because there's a lot about what we're going to do. But to your point, Steph, about what was it like? Are there some, really big numbers and outcomes that we want to be working towards?
Yeah, so hopefully I've got my brief that we're launching the new legislation with Jess Phillips this afternoon, actually. So, and the reason I say it's helpful is because we solve about 21% of crime that's targeted against women and girls. So I think that has to be a really strong indicator. I'm always very disappointed because there's obviously, by virtue of saying circa 21%, there's a big bucket that's not solved. But obviously we benchmark ourselves against the rest of policing. And we are a good performer when we benchmark ourselves across the policing landscape. And I think with the RDG and the joint strategy, we've been really clear about saying that we want, if we're going to make it a hostile environment for predominantly predatory sex offenders or those that are just choosing to target women who travel on our network, the higher chance you've got of prosecuting those individuals, the greater the deterrent is as a result of that. So I think the two do go hand in hand, and we have a high solve rate and we have got an increasing number of volume that's coming in. So it is difficult to catch your breath sometimes. So we're holding our own and making it significantly better. So I think there are definitely metrics that would want to look at. The confidence of our victims. Sometimes have a very victim central approach, and sometimes the outcome that we would want isn't necessarily the outcome that the victim would want. So it's a very sensitive area in terms of making sure that we get the right outcome. So we should be looking at confidence levels from our victims, also bystanders. I say it all the time if I'm interviewed on this. There's a lot of people who will start to see some predatory behaviour targeting towards women and girls, and they choose to just get up and go into the next carriage. And we're saying that don't be that bystander. You need to be the person that's choosing to report it. I think other metrics for the authority to be mindful of is, the increase in 1016. It first came in 11 years ago. I think 19,000 reports a year. We have over a quarter of a million texts a year now. So I think people's accessibility to policing to report this behaviour. So there are a lot of indicators. There are some real challenges for us. We've got rape trials now that are being listed for the tail end of 2030. And bear in mind, if that's a charge today, the offence probably happened just under a year ago. And that's, we've got individuals that will be on bail and victims to make sure that we support over a long period of time, which is a real challenge. And then also internally on the PDR process, everybody will be given a priority target to make sure that they are showing how their daily work reflects their commitment to combating violence and intimidation against women and girls. So there is a lot of work going on, but we certainly can give you an idea of the indicators we think that we should collectively be looking at to see for improvement. But I would really encourage people not to think in that binary way that an increase is a bad thing. Obviously, we want it to come down, but hopefully we'll finally reach a point where we think that we've got a better understanding of the type of offending that's taking place.
And that may just go to help colleagues from the FT with the argument about superficially pushing it in a different points may look as if it's been deprioritised, but if we've got a big target, maybe it's the sulfur rate, Lucy, I don't know, that we want to used to demonstrate the seriousness and the effort and the focus that's on that may go somewhere to help.
I think it's also a brilliant case study of the conversation we're having this morning around the need to be transparent with each other about what we think good looks like. So there's a sort of looking across all those different ways of assessing your performance, benchmarking, trend over time, 61016, user confidence. At what point do you look me in the eye and say we are doing the best job we can? So what's the basket of success which allows us to go to have the same view that things are either going well or not as well as they need to. And so I think that's the practical consequence of the discussion that we were having this morning. So what will make you happy?
Yeah, well, I mean, definitely greater investment in CCTV. I mean, it's just an unacceptable position that we're in, that you can have somebody who is a victim of, rape, serious sexual offending, intimidation, and we have to say it's the hardest thing in the world for my investigators to have to say, I'm sorry, but either the CCTV wasn't working or there is no CCTV, because passenger expectation is that it's everywhere.
So maybe that's an indication to be managed for the industry rather than necessarily just something which is for.
So, yeah.
Thank you, Rachel, for taking us back into the policing plan. I think that turned into a really helpful conversation. But back onto the consent agenda, has anybody got any final questions, comments on anything that was below the line? But if not, I think we are just noting/approving. That's right. Everything, noting where we need to note and approving where we need to approve, and saying thank you very much for putting all that together. Okay, so we have achieved a very efficient business meeting. Any final thoughts or other business before we close?
Just picking on Lucy's point, I don't know, Diane, there's a feedback loop, and I know you've got RDG, you've got tons of orders, but maybe is there a feedback loop that says industry, one of the things needs to be really struggling with, I know you have told them already, is so if we could leave it to be careful, but
it's one of the things we've been talking about on SIM is we've got the 5 pillars that they really should be signed up to on the NDP, and so therefore, what are the outputs or what are the output measures that we say to industry or industry would recognise as sort of saying, this additional investment is working. But I think what we're going to have to avoid is like the preliminary study of like 126 KPIs and different. Because a lot of this stuff doesn't shift quickly.
No.
So I think it's, what are the high level outputs that are changing that the industry would recognise from the additional inputs that we deliver. That's certainly a conversation that I want to have with Stefan there. I think you've been looking at kind of what that metric and what that scorecard would look like, but we really need to kind of have the industry input into that, and certainly art and engineering and Network Rail have offered to kind of help with sort of some of the data sets, so that we're not creating another set of data when there's one that already exists when you have an industry that's recognised. So that's where we're trying to get to.
Yeah, I think, there's an awful lot of work going on, and but I think it's a fair point, Brian. I mean, the conversations that we've been having, particularly in relation to the for example, commercial contracts. So if the help points out of action at a station, at the moment it can be out of action for like days.
Yeah.
So where is that prioritising the focus and the safety of women and girls? When people are procuring their contracts, the things that we know are directly linked into the safety of women should be a priority in some of these commercial contracts. And there is body worn cameras, which we know that there is definitely a significant step change in industry wearing the body worn cameras, but it's about telling the story in an effective way that if I'm a victim of a sexual offence and I report that to a member of rail staff who is wearing a body worn camera, then the first complaint is captured. If Brian's not wearing it, then it's not captured. And if these are the sort of things. Last trains are cancelled. We know that the vulnerability of women and girls at that point is significantly higher than male passengers, and yet the decision is made more on a logistics perspective rather than as a safety and well-being issue. And I think that this is where, with GBR, what are the standards that are being set in terms of, contracts, ways of operating that we want to see standardised, and I think there's a huge opportunity. with GBR to make a significant difference in relation to this. It just needs to be seized. And then obviously you've got the more challenging issue, which is the capital investment in terms of CCTV upgrades. It cannot be acceptable. I mean, I think our job is to help some of our colleagues in industry who are presenting at board meetings, wanting investment, and TfL is a prime example. They want investment, they want to improve the CCTV, but there are competing demands, and how we can provide our data to help support people to present those good cases for investment, because we know from the work that Steph and her team did that only a small increase in women travelling and their confidence to travel has a significant revenue benefit. And you know, whilst I don't want to bring it down to money, but it is a point. And you know, we know that women travellers drop off as the evening gets later, and that can't be right.
Sam?
No, I mean, look, you're absolutely right. I think this is one of the things that the SIG should be focusing on. It's almost like year one is the next control period, which will be the first integrated kind of tape. You know, we were investing in CCTV to be that, not as an afterthought, but as a key kind of underpinning asset management perspective, because that requires the inputs. But how do we get an input into that? We can probably use SIG to do that, because GBR have really got a design lead for future security is.
Again, that ties together two themes from this morning, which are getting ahead of processes rather than following up behind them. And whoever wrote advocacy in one of the flip charts and then underlined it twice, that kind of another, to have a common set of goals that we're collectively trying to achieve on behalf of the effective functioning of the whole system.
It's like, we need 3 years' time, 4 years' time, 5.
Great.
Yeah, how do we start tweets at that?
Alexia?
Just super quick on this. I wouldn't wait on GBR. So GBR has the great potential of turning into an absolute monolith that it's like trying to turn an oil tanker, flying nothing else. I advocate for targeting those train operators that sit outside GBR, might say this, like your Transport for London, TfL, in Scotland as well, and actually using some opportunities there in advance of GVR, which, you know, last possible May might shame a few others to carrying that. Very well. Building up your point around pace. So the opposite. Wait, fantastic. Look, thank you all very much. I think everybody's worked very hard today. I really, really appreciate it. And we've got a lot of work to do to make sure that we kind of reflect on the feedback from the first session and put it all together. If anybody's got any other feedback, I know nobody ever wants to do it in the room, then just come back to us directly. But thank you very much, everybody. Have a successful afternoon, and we'd like to see you all soon. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.